booth is not quite here, but I think there's 4 of us. We could probably get started if that's okay with you.
Yes, I think that's great.
Okay, Jerry, do you want to start the recording and the live feed?
We haven't started yet.
The YouTube stream has started.
All right. Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'd like to welcome all of you here
Recording
today.
in progress.
Let's see. It's
Now we're
recording in
ready.
progress. Now we're ready. Okay, perfect. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for everybody that has put time and effort into researching and preparing and coming to this meeting prepared to do work here on our CTE standards. So why don't we go ahead and get started? The screen in front of me, is that where we are wanting to begin?
Left off, unless you guys want to jump down to the bottom. It's up to you, but that's where we left off, was there at the commercial photography and like
This is number 2, right? Yes, strand 7, standard 4.
I think we were on strand 5.
Strand
We did-
7, standard
did-
4 is what I wrote down.
Oh, let's see. You're right. So we did 3. So you're right. It's 4. We're on 4.
Starting on page 71.
Make sure I'm on the right spot.
Okay, we want to start on strand 4 then.
Yeah, I'm still not finding it, but is it in commercial photography 2 or 3?
2.
2. Okay,
We
sorry.
finished 2. We're on 3.
So let's make sure we're all in the same place. So I still
Right.
show us on commercial photography 2.
2. Oh, you're right. Okay.
Understand and demonstrate continuous improvement. That's what I'm looking for. Let's see if we can find it in the document. Is that? So it's in strand 7.
Yeah, strand 7, standard 4 is
Yeah.
where you were.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I am.
I guess I'm just not, okay.
Page 79 of the original document. Page 12 on the amendment.
Okay, that's where I'm getting lost. Get the amendment document. Okay, so standard 4, it just doesn't have the strand 7 out by it, right?
Correct. So
Okay,
strand 7, standard 4, first bullet.
Perfect.
Page 79.
Okay.
Okay. So do we have any questions, concerns, motions that anybody would like to make here?
Okay. Trying to just look at mine again, compared to what I'm seeing up there. So we'll just go with what's up there, and if I see a problem, I'll let you know. But so I would move to strike understand and start with demonstrate conscientious workplace habits. Understand is implied in a student's ability to demonstrate. So demonstrate conscientious workplace habits, participate in a job shadowing activity. So just adding in job, striking, explore workplace ethics, codes of conduct, recognize safety issues, and instead compare workplace ethics and codes of conduct with fundamental constitutional rights to see how they do or do not align. And then
So that's not, that's a new, right? I don't have
that's
that
the
on my
green
doc-
is
Okay,
new, yes.
okay. That, because I'm, okay.
Yes, and then perform a skill demonstration and then strike, exercise your right to know.
I have a question.
question to Talia. Yeah, is there, because this is all under this Skills USA piece. So do we need to align with the pieces of what they want to make sure all students know, or is there any flexibility there in regards to these amendments?
Excellent question. I have my own answers to that, but I am going to turn us over, if you don't mind, to Christina Yamada. Christina is one of our specialists. Again, our specialist who oversees this area is out on maternity leave, but Christina also works closely with Skills USA.
Does she want to come up to this?
Do you want to jump out on Christina?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Christina Yamada, and we can alter the Skills USA requirements, objectives as a state. We just have to do that as a state as a whole.
Okay. I guess okay, thank you. I'm just, so it's. Okay, if we start at the top with the, understand, crossed out, and demonstrate, I'm fine with demonstrate for sure. But conscientious workplace habits, is also fine with me. I'm wondering if there was a reason we had demonstrate and the reason to add conscientious. That's where I'm not gonna say again today. And then my other question is the need to include the fundamental constitutional rights to that second amendment. I'm also.
Are you asking a question? or you just-
Yeah, I'm asking maker of the amendment, what the rationale between conscientious.
Conscientious.
Yep, it's not gonna work with my little list. And then, the fundamental constitutional rights piece of why that's necessary in talking about learning how to be an employee.
So, and I'm fine if we leave out conscientious, but it seemed to be a more active way of demonstrating versus just understand. So, but it could be viewed as subjective itself.
Yeah.
So we could totally take that out, just demonstrate workplace habits, and then participate in a job shadowing activity. You were fine with that? Okay.
It should be job shadowing.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah, I was like a shadowing activity. It sounds
Yeah, it was weird, like.
sketchy.
Sneak
around behind you.
Yeah.
And then as far as the second part, compare workplace ethics and codes of conduct with fundamental constitutional rights to see how they do or do not align. So this is just speaking to the fact that we have in our country the Constitution, and then we have the administrative state and the workplace that seems to have its own way of doing things that often comes in conflict with fundamental constitutional rights. And so helping students become more aware of where we are getting away from constitutional rights under these other kinds of documents, such as workplace ethics and codes of conduct. And so just making students aware that you have fundamental constitutional rights, and those were put in place to protect us in all aspects of our lives, not just, I mean, if work is the majority of our lives, but we don't have constitutional rights in work, then what good are our constitutional rights? So that's kind of the idea.
I hear you on that. I just don't think it's important for them to learn it in this. I just don't feel like it is a necessary add to this.
I know that our
But the first part too, I'm trying to think of a different word than the word I can't say that could maybe.
conscientious.
Yeah,
You don't have to
like
put anything there.
demonstrate
In fact, you could
positive
just strike
workplace
that if
habits.
there's no
Yeah.
objection.
But I mean, I get what you're saying for sure. I'm wondering if it's necessary to add that in here, explore work, like codes of conduct, for recognize safety issues, like that seems important in a lot of these jobs. Skills USA.
So I know in our
As well.
Utah code that it requires that Constitution be weaved throughout all subject areas, that an understanding of our constitutional rights is supposed to be embedded throughout all of our school subjects. So I think this is a great place to add that in.
Yeah.
Can I make just one suggestion for you to consider? After discussing with specialists that whole entire strand 7 in this and the other commercial photography. I apologize, I can't speak today either. We would absolutely be in favor of just removing that entire strand from all 3 courses for right now, and rewording it. It's old language that's been in there for a really long time. They didn't make any changes to it, but we could take it out and just go with our standard workplace skills standard that you've already approved and put it in its place. And just take all
So
of
what is the
it.
standard work? Will you just reference me to the
Yep,
standard?
so let me go back up. to
Is there a way to make the sound in here better for those listening online? They say it's hard to hear.
It's probably just my voice.
I think it's just in general. They're saying it's hard to hear you.
They can't hear the Zoom. Is it? Jerry, can you increase the sound on Zoom? In this room?
Public's having difficulty hearing.
They won't hear me mispronounce how really. So what we had said in architectural design was identify the professional skills needed for blank career. We could substitute in commercial photography careers, communication, problem solving, teamwork, critical thinking, dependability, accountability, and legal requirements and expectations.
I like that idea with the consistency.
I would make that as a substitute motion, that will you do that? Is it in all 3 courses?
I believe it is.
Yes.
Okay, or all 3 of the photography courses, so and then it's consistent throughout the document.
As well be in like across the board, not just photography,
As we
but having
move forward, we just would make that change as a line item in all of our standards.
And I would just like to object to that only because I am actually prepared to make a motion to take that out of all of the CTE standards, that list of workplace skills that are being embedded throughout, because they align to global frameworks for career technical education. They start out as life skills, and then 21st century skills, then workplace skills. Like you said, they come under a lot of different names, but at its core, it's social emotional learning being embedded throughout. And so I am opposed to those being implemented and would ask that we stick with the objective academic performance and demonstration skills instead of the soft skills, which everybody is now saying are workplace skills, are essential skills. Those come as students learn a vocation. And vocational training is good. We've always done that, but this other is something very different, and it aligns to the global 21st century skills that are not about vocational training.
So that was my substitute motion. So I don't know, Randy, if we want to vote on that.
assembly.
It would be to
conducted.
substitute that in for those 3. So we could continue with Emily conducting. Emily, do you want to continue or have Randy? It's up to you guys. I just didn't know if it was easier.
The public is still saying they cannot hear the YouTube stream.
Jerry said it was low at the beginning, but it's up now. But that was a recent text?
Yeah, that was a minute ago.
And is there somewhere we can see the list again? Because we're talking about dependability, right? Accountability,
I can at least type it.
legal requirements. So I just want to make sure I'm
Nope, that's not it.
It's
So all the
the
way back at the top, Elise.
same
Yes, right
skills
there.
that are,
It's right here.
yeah, it's the same skills that are the portrait, are what make up our portrait of a graduate, which I've spoken at length about. why
so
I'm
it's
against
problem
that.
solving, teamwork, that's not it. Because
Because
we changed it from team collaboration to teamwork.
They're synonymous. It doesn't matter which one you put.
That's the list that you
Okay,
approved.
thank you. Dependability, accountability, and then the legal. So, okay.
So these are the portrait of a graduate skills that 20, the global frameworks define very differently than what
Oh, no. Just sorry, because I gotta order from here because
Same across the board.
I understand that, but I need to order pamphlets. 'cause I can't
It
get her
seems like
her-
we have somebody in the online room that doesn't have their mute on. If they might do that for us, please.
We muted her. Should be good now.
No worries. Thank you.
I say it's still kind of low, but pumped up all the way isn't very loud.
I would say, I mean, I prefer the motion that we passed previously. I think those are important pieces in learning about working professionally and in the environment. So I think I'll probably stick with those.
And I'll just say those align with OECD and UNESCO and P21 and several of the other global frameworks.
Okay, so we have a motion, a substitute motion from member Earl. Identify the workplace skills needed for careers. Let's see, are we done there? Communication, teamwork, critical and creative.
It would
thinking.
actually be professional skills, identify the professional skills.
Professional skills.
I just want a clarification. Did we change it from collaboration to teamwork?
Let me just go try.
I want to make sure that's the case.
Andrea, do you have any notes that say change?
Talia, can you mention?
We added the following legal requirements. We added that.
Yeah.
That's the list as I have it from your original motion.
Okay. That's fine. I just want to make sure that was accurate. Okay.
All right, do we have any other questions, or can we go ahead and call a vote?
I'll just make another comment. There are global frameworks that are also assessing these, the very skills that our POG says are not necessarily meant to be tested or quantified or measured. And so there are a number of global frameworks that are measuring these, that have assessments for these, which go against the intent or what our portrait of a graduate was when it was initially passed. And if that has changed, then we should change it in portrait of a graduate so that it's accurate and not misleading to the public.
Okay. All right, so we've got the substitute motion for member Earl. Identify the professional skills needed for careers in commercial photography, communication, teamwork, critical and creative thinking, problem solving, dependability, following legal requirements and expectations. No more questions or comments. Let's take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All in against, say no.
No.
Okay, that passes 4-1.
Standard 5.
Yep. So now we move to commercial photography 3. Because you've deleted that entire strand now.
Okay, okay. Okay. Okay, so number 3.
So should the motion be that we were removing that and then substituting for that?
Yeah, so you're
That's part of-
removing.
We need to change the wording just
Deleting
slightly.
strand 7 in all of the photo courses, whatever the appropriate strand.
I can read, I mean,
As a
we
friendly
already moved
member,
that,
is
but I
that
can
okay?
make it, and then we can vote again if you'd like, that it's to remove strand 7, is that right? And
Well,
then
it's
to align it.
what other, the associated strand.
And the associated strands in commercial photography 3, 1, and 2.
Yes.
If we need to re-vote on that, we can.
Does everybody feel okay about it, friendly on that or whatever? Or we need to do it more
Is
formally?
anyone is opposed to that? I'm fine with it.
Do it. I don't know that I actually want to remove the strand 7 completely. So if I could just clarify then. So remember Earl, you're saying that we are completely removing strand 7 from the Skills USA level 2 from commercial photography 2.
And
Is that-
replacing it with
Yes,
two, and
it would
three.
replace it with the list instead of those components
So
there.
all the standards, 1 through 6 would be gone and they'd only keep, they'd replace it with just workplace skills.
Okay, so, yeah, that one's not a friendly for me.
Strand off.
It was remember,
Just
Green,
remove
it
the
was part of what Talia was mentioning, that the specialist said that they felt like it was actually old language and that they could remove it and replace it with the one that we had already used on the other courses.
On the other ones, yeah.
We like to interact.
Strand 7 has 6 standards under it. So you're saying remove all of that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a no for me. I know that we did that earlier, but anyway, we can go ahead and I guess we would call a vote for that, wouldn't we?
And we would just bring it back to us, or is it, we would just be done with it?
We would be done with it because you just replaced it with this language right here. So in commercial photography 3.
So at the,
strand
yeah,
4,
so
for
then you've
example.
got your understanding, you've got the teaching principles, strand 6 is a portfolio, and the completion, the skills level, Skills USA is the career workplace element, and just putting in a listing of that. Right? Instead of all the standards underneath there.
So we're standardizing to align with national and global frameworks.
No, we're using the language to apply dependability workforce. I know that you're wanting it to, and maybe it does align with some of that,
I don't want
but we're
it.
not changing the meaning of problem solving. Maybe there's people that define it differently, but I don't think everybody defines it the way certain entities define it. Dependability. These are things we want. So.
Global CTE.
Whatever global does, we still need people that we're training to work, to be dependable, to be able to problem solve,
Is
be
this,
able to be a part of a team.
I guess my question is, and that's the simplification of that. Time-wise, do you know what I mean? Does that take away a good portion of the course itself?
No, a teacher would build out that list with activities and different things in their own classrooms that would help in context to teach some of those skills.
Okay, Emily, are there pieces of this that you're feeling need to still be there? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I know there's a reference that it might be out of date. I just see that it's, my understanding, I guess, and is that the performance skills, the first vote is that we were adding identify the professional skills, so forth, underneath on page 79, performance skills. So I liked that, but I also find a lot of value in the standards as they're listed under strand 7. So I would like to see those stay. So I don't know where we go from here. Unless it's
feel like I
not a
would
friendly
want
amendment, so we probably just need to re-vote on that, is what I'm understanding. And I'm gonna need a little bit of guidance here because I'm not sure, and I apologize.
Okay, so we need to vote on
Do anything
substituting.
knowledge goals. Good.
So Andrea, is this remove strand 7? Is that what?
Well, there are different strands in the 3 different courses, so we're just so we changed it to remove the strand in the commercial photography 1, 2, and 3 that deals with Skills USA and replace it with that's the professional skills list that you guys had approved previously.
All right, so that's what we need to vote
So
on.
I actually personally would like to wait on this to look down through those to see if there are some that need to. I don't feel like this is, I mean, I think looking at like standard 4 on 3, construct a job search network, right? There's some things that I'm thinking, research, resume writing, things like that, that are not really replaceable in. Does that make sense? So I actually would like to wait until our next meeting because I don't feel like there's enough time to look through those and make a educated vote on that. So I move to postpone the end of what? The end of this section, what is it? The workplace skills USA framework until our next meeting, if that's okay.
Okay,
Because I think, Emily, I think you're right. There are some components to this that probably need to be built into that. So,
all right, so we have a motion to wait or postpone the consideration and approval, review and approval of this particular USA skills section to our next meeting. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of postponing, please say aye.
I.
I,
Aye. And those opposed?
No, there's
No, there's nobody. Okay. All right, so that passes unanimously. We'll postpone.
With Pat.
Yeah, so we would be in commercial photography 3 then,
Yeah.
because then we would address.
So I think because your previous motion had already passed, you might want to do a motion to rescind the previous motion, just so that there's the clarification on that you didn't want to remove that whole one. That you're picking it back up, right, where it was. So you might just want to move to rescind that
Yeah.
previous motion.
We just pick it up where we're at on that one?
Yeah, yeah. But that previous motion, that has to stand then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no motion necessary. Okay, great. Where are we now?
I think would be commercial photography 3, if
All
I'm
right,
correct. Yeah. So
all right, let's go.
strand 1.
Course description, I think, is first.
Okay, so I'm just gonna, okay, so I would move to delete what's in red and basically it's just replacing competency with knowledge and skills. That's the only thing that's changed. So it would say, this course is designed to help students develop a professional level of knowledge and skills in commercial photography. And then down below, striking the words connecting with the community through real world experiences so that it focuses on the actual skill portion instead of the subjective.
So you've got real world taken out of most of these areas. There's a few places that they're still left in there, but I've thought about this all week and I've looked at different things. I think the real world is the reason for a CTE class. It's not just connecting with the community. You want to know the actual application of whatever you're doing. This is one of those things, like all week long, I've been thinking about it, researching it, looking at it. I'm not comfortable with moving real world. I'm not sure, I don't know where it gets off, so to speak, because to leave it, real world suggests that it's an actual thing, not a theoretical, not a hypothetical. So I'm comfortable with leaving real world in.
Is real world defined somewhere?
No, it's not. It's probably not. So it would imply that it's real things that would take place in the real world.
Is there a definition somewhere?
Applications or professional.
Or it's just, they just leave it to us to assume?
To assume it's things
if I can say something, I had looked at, the definition as Google would have it, or the dictionary. It's the dictionary online. And it just says the real world, the existing state of things, as opposed to one that is imaginary, simulated, or theoretical. And so for me, the way I would apply that to this course is that this is not, job shadowing a commercial photographer. And he's like, well, tell me what you'd do if this happened. He'd be like, this is happening right now. How are we going to solve that? So that's how I would apply the real world term as it stands with that definition and how it applies to the photography class. So I did spend a little bit of time trying to put those together to understand it better.
My concern comes in to this area of service learning, work-based learning, where kids are going out on internships, and they're working in the workplace, not getting paid, but providing free labor in the workplace. And this idea behind it, I just think there's a really, there's one thing, it's one thing to have real life experiences and learning these skills and learning to apply them. It's another thing, and even internships in the traditional sense of an internship, but where all of these students are expected to go into the workplace and provide free labor for the workplace. That sits wrong with me.
If, let's just say we took real world out, they're still going to do projects with industry. Am I right in saying that? Or is moving real world saying that now you can't do a project in industry because you might be providing services? Am I?
Repeat that again, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so if we remove real world, does that mean the projects are only limited to what they can do in a classroom? Because,
Simulated, right?
yeah, is that what?
I think it gives more opportunity for that to happen, but not every student does an internship. Not every student, the idea is that they're learning skills and knowledge that are necessary in the real world, not just simulated in a classroom.
Right, theoretical, they're actually actual.
And by removing it, does it change? Maybe. I think real world is more specific, where it lets the teacher know that these should be real.
So just completing a project
Right.
where they're, yeah.
Making it up,
Oh.
right?
Well, making it up versus doing a project that you, like, they go out, they take pictures out in nature, they create a portfolio, they turn it in, that's still real. And they had to go out into the world to do it. They just didn't have to go into the workplace to do it and provide free labor for the workplace.
Real world to me does not suggest that it's out in the workplace.
But
So-
this is where CTE is, what we're setting up is work-based learning and service-based learning, which is students go into the workplace and the community or the workplace comes into the school, so that there's this meshing of the two, which becomes problematic when you don't have those protections or those barriers to say, well, where does one end and the other begin? Now we're just kind of muddying the waters. And at what point should students expect to be paid for their work versus providing free labor? Right now, there's a training from a national education organization this week, tomorrow actually, on child labor exploitation and the growing problem of that in the workplace. They talk in their brochures about it. They frame it as illegal child labor exploitation, but then reframe it as if it's done under the government program of these kind of workplace or work-based learning things, then somehow it's not child labor trafficking or exploitation. And so I just want to be very, I want us to be aware that we are in a kind of a weird space with this right now. And just because it's government doing it and taking advantage of child labor doesn't make it any better than if employers were doing that.
This is photography 3, probably an 18-year-old, we're talking children. Have you had any reports of exploitation? Or are we secretly putting kids, I'm just trying to figure out, I'm not trying to make fun, I'm trying to understand, what's our responsibility to make sure that it's in a respectable, right? That we're going into I think maybe it's not even going, it's actually maybe having a photographer come in and sharing, right? Or showing projects that they've worked on.
So there are laws and rules in place around work-based learning in Utah about who can do what requirements. If anyone is going to be spending an inordinate amount of time with students, they have to have background checks. We have guidelines in place around our internship program. It's a maximum of 40 hours. So it wouldn't be,
A week?
no, total,
Oh,
in total.
okay.
So it's a very, you're saying it's a structured,
It is a structured program. We work with state risk management to oversee all of that. And the LEAs all have toolkits, and they have folks who are hired to oversee those programs, to work with employers to ensure that the rules and laws are being followed, and that this doesn't turn into, because we don't want that either, but I am not aware of any time that's ever been something
Yeah.
that has been an issue.
the idea is to, I mean, the way that I see a lot of these CTE courses are try out this job, this career, and see if this is something you're interested in. Part of that is also learning about people who currently do it, right? And I feel like keeping real world experiences, I think that it's not going to hurt our students in any way. I think that the educators are going to do exactly as what a commercial 3 photography class does, which is teach them about being a professional commercial photographer one day. And so I would like to leave it in there. The first part of the amendment, it's not a hill I'm gonna die on in any way. It doesn't completely ruin the course description for me. So unless there's anything that any strands or standards that it breaks by removing that first part of the description. Okay.
Could I make
So-
a substitute motion?
Yeah.
Of course.
To leave Member Klein's first part of the amendment, and then to unstrike the real world part that's been taken out.
Okay, we have a substitute motion from Member Green to remove the section that Member Klein has recommended we remove at the top of the strand.
Can we just divide it? Can we just divide it instead?
That works.
Yeah, that's great. Let's
I will
divide it.
ask Emily if she wants to. No, I would prefer just to vote what Emily put forward. So.
Emily, are you okay with dividing it?
Let's just do what everybody wants and.
We can divide, that's fine.
Everything will be great. All right. So are we dividing or we're not dividing?
We can divide, that's fine.
Okay,
I'm trying to unstrike.
take the top part of it and vote. So the, Member Klein has recommended we remove what's stricken there in red and replace it with
What's in green?
the green. Okay. All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
No.
You're an aye.
Yeah.
So there's
4-1.
4 ayes and 1 no. The no vote being Sarah Rialde. All right. The second half of the vote is Member Green's recommendation that we
That's fine.
keep
Yes,
or let's see,
you're right.
is that right? That we keep the red that was stricken,
Can't just vote on the motion.
connecting with the community through real world
We
experience.
just vote on it.
Yeah, we
yes or
just
no,
vote on yes or
on
no
the
on the
line.
motion, remove it, yeah.
So-
It doesn't need to be changed. It can just be,
It doesn't need to be a motion
if
to
you vote
keep it.
no, then you're in favor of
Yeah.
what she wants.
Okay,
Right.
If you vote
So what
yes,
shall
you're
I
in
say?
favor of.
The motion would be
Yes,
to
but-
remove that language.
okay.
And so,
So the motion is to remove this language. To remove what is red right there, right?
You might want to
So
read it
this
for
is,
the.
so it's Member Klein's motion to remove the red stricken language, connecting with the community through real world experiences. Okay, so that's Member Klein, that's not Member,
Correct.
but Member Greens will be taking care of it if we do this, whatever this comes out. Okay, great. Everyone in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Member Green?
Member Green?
Okay, well, let's.
We lost her.
I don't know. Hopefully she's okay.
Okay, so that was.
Commercial photo 3, court description, you're on the strand 1.
We lost her for a minute. She's getting back on.
Okay.
Okay,
I just made my motion. So my motion would be to strike real world in strand 1 and under performance skills. And I can just combine those two. They say the same thing basically. So it would say complete projects instead of complete real world projects, and then producing projects instead of producing real world projects.
okay. Any discussion, or do you want to speak to it? No. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Nay.
Nay.
Nay. Motion failed.
Okay. Make a motion to, strand 2, standard 1, to strike service dash. So it would read, students will develop high-level industry-specific skills through hands-on learning outside of classroom time.
Okay, so. Read that last part one more time.
Just striking service is what it would be.
Strike service, okay. Through hands-on learning outside of the classroom, okay. If you. All right. We have a motion from member Klein, removes service is the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, that passes 3-2. 2 no votes being member Reel and member Green. Next,
And then, let's just skip down to, did I have something? Hang on. Okay, and then I'll skip down to performance skills after standard 4. And I would strike using best practices. So that instead it reads develop and execute a professional plan for a career in photography, the photography industry.
okay,
So we're
Any
down to the
questions?
performance skill now at the bottom. Let's get into the next two.
next
Go to
two.
the
So just as have it in,
performance skill.
So are we, because we're skipping the skills UFCA stuff.
all right. Is there any discussion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed?
No.
Okay,
Is the
that
next one just
passes.
grammatical data?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that can
You
just
just
be
change
changed,
that.
right? Okay.
And then we have real world again, and yeah, and then under performance skills, I would move to strike problem. Hang on a second. So it would strike problem and real world. So it would read independently solve photographic scenarios with industry partners for school programs.
So you're removing real world there too.
Yes,
Okay.
if you want, we can split those.
Anyone want to split?
So you're talking me, I don't necessarily,
So
I'm trying to understand independently problem solve real world.
it would.
I know what it would read. I'm just trying to
Okay.
read it out loud.
Okay,
Independently problem solve real world photographic scenarios with the industry partners. Independently problem solve, independently solve.
independently solve photographic scenarios with industry partners for school programs.
So the difference is they're solving something. We don't. I think I'm comfortable with problems staying in there because it's suggesting that you're working through difficulties with real world, with photographers or those that you're working with. So anyways, sorry, just talking out loud, trying to hear it both ways.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready to vote. Anybody else have a comment?
Any other comments? All right. All those in favor, those opposed?
No.
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 Okay, that's 4-1. Next.
All right, so we're going down to the Skills USA one again, or are we skipping that?
Skip that one. Yeah, that was.
So that goes back to your original
Postpone.
motion.
Okay.
So we go down to, so that's the end of.
Yes.
the end of Commercial. So
Sorry, what are we
33.
doing now?
So we're gonna skip all of the business courses. Our specialist is out of town. But that one, you're not gonna move those courses forward yet. So we're gonna jump all the way down to. Hold on. We're going down to computer systems 1 and 2.
16.
16, is that how you said
Mm-hmm.
that? Do a search on a document. Computer system.
Yeah.
Found it.
Yeah.
Right to it.
Getting down.
Computer systems 1 and 2.
See what the motions are. String 5 is the first one.
Yes.
It is the right spot.
It's page 31.
What page?
It's page 31 in the amendment document.
Oh, not this one, though.
No.
I don't know why it didn't.
Control
all the way there. I did that other
Oh,
one. It just
Christina.
didn't take me there
Yeah.
before.
That's because if you put in her name.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion on this one. I would move that we put in be respectful of other cultures. If culturally sensitive has some kind of a connotation, I just think be respectful of other cultures, just being polite, I don't think really gets it, the idea that people have different religions, they have different, communities they're from, I think.
What was the one that the language that we had used earlier and passed on at our last committee meeting? We could use that same language, right? Can we go back?
Where are you? Looking.
Strand 5.
Strand 5
of
says be
computer systems.
culturally sensitive.
Yeah,
And I'm just making a motion that we make it, we change the language to be respectful of other cultures.
Work productively as a member of a team. Oh, no, that one fails. Hold on.
I just, instead of be polite, like I had recommended.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think.
Well, I think being polite is great. I like polite, but I also like being respectful of cultural differences, of cultural.
Does it have to say cultural? Can we just respectful of differences?
I just know that I used the example in our last meeting of my brother-in-law, and all he was doing was serving a nice dinner and started to do business while he was doing dinner, and it offended them, and they took their business elsewhere from China. So, I mean, there's just things that we've got to be aware of in order to
Pretty close.
be respectful of.
Those cultures, I think is maybe what it was.
Different cultures, develop awareness of different cultures.
Which I'm fine with just this, be respectful of other cultures. I just.
So would it be polite? Are you saying be polite and
No, I
no
just,
polite?
Oh,
We don't want to be polite.
yeah.
Just be.
The problem with culture is it brings in a political aspect to it because culture has been politicized.
But somehow we have to
It's
help.
like climate,
students become-
culture, they're kind of used synonymously around these political identity.
So there, and I like, if you put people in there respectful of other people, it isn't, but it doesn't speak to the broader context. Meaning religion or those other areas, you
Right,
respect
doesn't it? How does
individuals.
it seems all inclusive if you just say be respectful or be polite, because even respect is taken to an extreme now where, you know, if you don't use somebody's preferred pronouns, it's deemed irrespectful. And maybe it's just because it goes against your religious beliefs. So it goes one way and not the other when it comes to the ideological aspect of respect or culture.
I like the language that we approved earlier and what you said on that amendment.
All right, so what I would move is be respectful of other cultures.
Different cultures. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, different.
Of different
Yeah,
cultures.
that's great.
Be respectful of different cultures.
Okay, we have a motion from member Earl, replace be culturally sensitive with we need to vote on be polite
Okay,
first.
can I comment
Yeah,
first?
of course.
Last time we met, we talked about the Skills USA framework and how in their framework is multicultural and sensitivity training, which is what this is saying, just in different words.
I don't think it is.
Be polite or
What page is that actually
trying to
on the
be
document? Because I went back and looked at it. to
it's
say,
in their,
is
it's in
this
a picture of their framework.
No. I'm talking about in the standards itself. It doesn't,
It just refers to the framework, but if you go to the framework itself said on the visual for their framework, it says multicultural and sensitivity training. Right. On their colorful.
I know what you're referring to. I'm looking at the standards though.
Jenny, we're on 177 is the
Page
section.
7.
But even though, you know, Talia said, we don't do that here in
This is
Utah.
at Skills
Those-
USA.
That language is still being embedded throughout these standards, so it doesn't have to be a discrete or a training. It can just be embedded throughout.
Sorry, I'm looking.
And just like we had
So
the
it says-
diversity and equality and inclusion part that we were looking at before, that is the embedding of the multicultural and sensitivity training. Whether or not it is.
So this is what
covered
I'm reading. This
discreetly
is standard
in a
1,
training.
understand proper communication techniques and professionalism. So then it lists off several things. It's be on time, active listening. I think being respectful of other cultures falls under those things. It's not, we're doing an equity training on this. I don't see that as that. I prefer the language over culturally sensitive because I think that does lean into
Be
that more.
interpreted the same way. And give them the room they need to do just that.
Well, I think good teachers are going to teach their students to be culturally sensitive or they're not doing their job. Culturally respectful. I mean, I've only visited 45 countries multiple times, and I know that I had to learn a lot in order to represent the university, America, the church, my family, because there were many differences that I did not understand and could not relate with because they were so different.
Does it go both ways? Does it require others to be respectful of our religious beliefs and our rights of conscience? Or do we have to
I would hope so.
bow to others because of their cultural differences? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this could be, this is under the guise of being respectful of different cultures. We could be being asked to give up our own culture and our own beliefs and value systems in order to show respect for others. And that's where it becomes a problem. are we allowing language to be put in here that
Being
says,
respectful of other cultures means that then we
What
are
I'm
no
saying
longer
is-
respecting our own culture.
in social emotional learning in Castle and there are many curriculums, they talk about, and in their trainings, they talk about respect being, when you teach somebody respect, that they have to use a person's preferred names or pronouns in order to show respect. Well, that fundamentally goes against my values, my religious beliefs. So do I get a negative score on respect because I refuse to use somebody's preferred name or pronoun because I believe that there are two
Would you be getting a
genders?
negative score on polite? Because that would not be polite if you were pushing, I'm just trying to compare the
But,
two.
but the thing is it's always going one direction. We're always only looking at it from the one perspective of the person that claims that they're marginalized or historically underrepresented or something like this, or an oppressed group. But what about for the other? What about the person that the individual?
Sensitive to respectful of different cultures covers all the people and all the things and being respectful to all human beings and all.
I'm just saying, in
I'm
the
ready to vote if you're
trainings, they specifically train it in this one directional way. And that's not okay. And so we need to be.
It's
I hear you,
looking
but
at
you're
both
making a
sides.
lot
It's
of-
not okay if that's what's
Yes,
happening.
Yes.
but that's not
Have
our
you
reality
seen-
or what we're seeing.
And
It
if
is
we
what-
did,
in all the
if we
trainings.
did, what would be, if we saw that in our training, what would be the process that someone could go through in order to, would they notify you, Talia?
They would go to UPAC if the
Okay.
teacher was doing something that was outside of their scope of work. This does not require culturally sensitive training, doesn't require adherence to a framework. It's just teaching respect.
But we don't even need it to be in their framework because it's in ours. It's in R277328 that requires schools to be inclusive. It requires teachers to teach inclusivity, which is the word that is used for including LGBT students. And so if a student is required to be inclusive or a teacher is required to be inclusive, that means they have to, and
Don't we have to?
They
be
have to
respectful
use
of all students and we want
Yes.
to teach.
Everyone.
Yes,
It's
but
not a
it shouldn't-
specific Group. It's
it's-
not a specific group. That's not the
Being
definition of
respectful
inclusive. It's
is
become
not-
politicized and has a wrong
But-
definition. I'm happy to vote on this if we're all comfortable.
But this is
I
what
feel
I'm
comfortable with
saying,
Talia-
is
what Talia has said, so let's just vote.
traditionally, we understand respect to mean a certain thing. But it is now being used to say, if you don't affirm them, then you can be written up as for a Title IX violation under the Biden administration's new sex-based discrimination.
We're working off state laws
And so-
here in our state, and that is not the case. So
But our own rule does that by requiring inclusivity to be, for teachers to practice inclusive measures in their classroom. That means a teacher has to use a student's preferred name or pronoun, even if it violates their religious belief or right of conscience. So where is the respect going the other way? It's all one directional, and this is the problem. I have no problem being kind and sensitive to people who have other ideas and beliefs, but when theirs now supersedes mine and I have to bow or give up mine, then it becomes a problem.
But how do we, so what's more important? Teaching the student to be true to whatever, which is very important.
Not violate their conscience,
violate their
which is their
conscience.
constitutional right.
Which would be
It's
part of being
okay.
respectful.
But being respectful is absolutely critical.
But I'm saying the trainings and the professional development that teachers are going through is teaching them that respect means affirming individual people's identity, even if it means going against their own religious belief or right of conscience.
Then how will we teach this if we can't say that we need to teach respect of different
Be
cultures?
polite. Then you don't have to affirm anybody's belief or their identities. You just be a good person. You just be polite and treat them like a human being.
But I don't think kids will get it. I don't think they're smart enough to understand what they've got to learn.
They understand their conscience until it's wiped away and they're not allowed to abide their conscience. And that's when they get confused,
I
because the
understand- I
system is
understand that,
requiring them
But there are things that are
to
just so
give up
different.
that little voice inside
I
them.
think we could vote
Okay,
if you're ready.
all right.
So,
So we're voting on be polite. And then we
no,
can,
we're voting on be
Yours.
respectful of different cultures. That's what I meant with that.
so yours is a substitute motion?
No, there was no other motion made. That was the motion made.
I thought,
She got ahead of me.
Yeah.
So
oh, okay.
I already had, I looked ahead on the notes.
All right, great. Okay. So all those in favor of Member Earl's motion to change it to say, change culturally sensitive to say, be respectful of different cultures.
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Hi.
And those nays or whatever. No,
Those nays.
thank you.
Natalie, on your next one, do you mind explaining? I just don't understand the difference here and why would we remove time? You haven't made the motion yet. It's the next one down, taught and modeled.
Okay, that one we already dealt with in our first meeting. That was one that went through all of it.
Sorry.
Okay.
So we're moving on to computer systems 2. Right, I'm sorry,
I didn't have one in.
through to see.
Introduction to 3D printing.
So do we need to move computer systems 1 and 2 then, while we're finished? I'm not getting the language right.
Yeah,
I'd like to
we
make,
could.
I'd like to make a motion that we move computer systems 1 and 2 to the full board for, what's the wording? Approval. Right, so I'd just make a motion on that so we can move those forward.
Okay. We have a motion to move
Computer
computer
systems.
systems 1 and 2 to the full board for approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No,
I'm an
Aye. Thank you.
all right.
And now
Where are we
we're
going next here?
on to introduction to 3D printing.
Where is that?
That is
So it's real world.
17.
Switch there.
All right, I'll skip that one. It's clear.
So make a motion that we move introduction to 3D printing forward to the full board for approval.
We have a motion to move introduction to 3D printing to the full board for approval. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous.
Where are we going now?
So next will be our education courses. Let me just look through and try to see what's going to make the most sense. Give me just one minute.
Educational instruction, is that the next one?
Yes, so we have, to me, would make the most sense to do teaching as a profession 1 first, so then you can see the progression to 2, if that's acceptable.
It's great.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, so
Teaching
we're
is a
gonna-
profession 1.
We're gonna go to teaching as a profession 1, which will now just be called teaching as a profession. In the standards document, page 233. And on the motions document, we have 2 motions about that course on the existing motions document.
So I'd like to make a motion on this course description. That it's left the same way, strike, we end, let's see, so careers and develop employable skills, we strike outlined in Utah's portrait of a first-year teacher. I get concerned when we reference things that could be changed. So it would say this, it would say students.
Can I interrupt? I'm
Yes.
sorry, just to make sure that Elise and I are on the same page. We're doing teaching as a profession 1 first, correct? And then we don't have those amendments
You don't have this,
written
no,
up.
it's just, yeah.
And so do we need to pull, I have
So they're in the document that I.
those new documents that Talia sent us. Elise, do you have those so that you can help pull language?
I don't have it open right now, but I can get it open.
Okay,
Let me.
Two versions on the list. Oh, that's just here. Okay.
sorry, just to help us get the motions
Yeah, you're
correct.
good.
Sorry, where would I find them? I'm just searching my email, but
So
I can send them to you.
a forward from Talia Longhurst from myself. Do you have that?
Course description.
Yeah, course description there. No, it was just after going through your changes, I look back to say, what do I want? Looking at those, so this
Is
is,
that something that you can put up on the?
yeah, I think that's, they're waiting to pull it up and then I can say what it
I
is.
just sent it to Elise.
Well, I can't.
I've got to go too.
So this is what I'm recommending for the change. It's not, I don't think you guys have it, but just striking outlined in Utah's portrait of a first-year teacher. And then at the end of, let's see, students will investigate theorists to set the framework for effective student learning and child development. I just want to add and child development there because it's not just student learning, it's the way children develop. So I just wanted to articulate that.
And
There's-
you don't want that Utah's portrait of a first-year teacher in
No,
there?
I don't, because
Okay.
it gets changed and a couple years down the road, it's a movable document and I don't put it in there.
Question.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's not in there, does that mean they won't use it? Talia?
I'm sorry.
If Utah's portrait of a first-year teacher is stricken, does that mean that the course won't use it?
I mean,
Or they can still use it, even if it's stricken?
I'm sure if the teacher uses something outlined to find out about it. Totally.
It doesn't
We can't
prohibit them.
control that.
Does it
Love that.
reference it within the document itself? I didn't see it in the course itself, though.
Student learning.
Was that accurate?
On a quick glance, let's tag in Ashley and I'll look through it quickly.
Jenny, what's the second piece after I got the strikeout, but what was, you wanted to add?
The standard.
So it would be outlined in Utah's portrait of a first-year teacher.
Okay,
And then there's a line here that says students will investigate theorists who set the framework for effective student learning.
uh-huh,
At the end of that, I'd like you to write and child development.
okay.
Because that's one of the key things is to understand the age appropriate developmental things that take place in children.
Not cool.
Hello. Not just for learning, but also for school.
So cool.
We're able to.
I wanted to make sure I have the right document because the version I got from Ashley doesn't have those same changes on it.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. So I was checking to make sure I have the right document.
This is Ashley Higgs.
So Ashley, the question is, Utah's portrait of, well, let me get the right name, portrait of a first-year teacher. Other than the course description, does that document appear anywhere in the Teaching as a Profession 1 standards?
I do believe it is, but it's in a reference as outlined in Utah portrait of a first-year teacher. I apologize, I'm driving, so I don't have the document in front of me.
I think that's the only location I was trying to, I can't see it. Does it pull up in mine?
This one?
But does it pull up in any other
No,
spots?
I just did a
Yeah, I
search.
did. I tried to do a search, it doesn't show up. But I know it's in there. That's why I'm like, wait.
It's just the portion, the parts of Utah's portrait of a first-year teacher are probably sprinkled throughout
If
this.
there's some pieces of that that don't fall under professional teaching, then we probably need to make adjustments. Okay, so my motion, were you able to get that up? I think that's it, Randy, then. So it's striking that reference, and then it's just adding child development.
So does that look correct, Jenny?
That
Okay.
does. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to strike that's up there above that I can't see. To strike, so it will read, students will explore educational careers, period.
And develop employable skills. Is that not?
Oh,
Sorry.
struck that. Is
I
that, okay,
apologize. And develop employable skills.
and so unstrike that
Yep.
part?
Yes.
Okay.
My apologies. You asked me and I said, oh, yeah, that's right. I just looked at, I saw the bottom. of it.
No worries.
Thank you for checking that, Renee.
Okay.
Okay, students will explore educational careers and develop employable skills. And then down below, we inserted something in green, which I can't remember.
Child development.
Student learning and child development. Any discussion or question? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Next.
I have a motion on the course description. I had a much lengthier one, but I'm going to try and break it out based on what we've just done. So where it says students will create basic lesson plans and accommodate for individual student needs, I would amend it to read accommodate for the academic needs of individual students. See. Take that.
What's in, tell me your new
So that's-
verbiage again?
Is so on the second sentence, it would read, students will create basic lesson plans and accommodate for the academic needs of individual students. So it's that last part, academic needs of individual students. Sorry, the academic needs of individual students. Please strike individual student needs and add the academic needs of individual students.
Does that change anything? I'm just curious.
Basically adds
Is
academic.
Ashley online? She is online. Is that, I'm just wondering if that changes significantly, if there's components of that that it impacts dramatically.
No,
Go ahead,
no, I
Ashley.
think it's a friendly amendment.
Ready?
Can you hear me?
Thank you.
That's a friendly amendment.
Great. Okay, any discussion? Not all those in favor of that motion to read accommodate the academic needs of individual students, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Member Green?
Screen.
I've lost her.
Heard I, but I don't. Or again.
Yeah, if you don't.
More to nothing.
Oh,
It doesn't matter, I guess.
she jumped off, but we got her again. Got her back in.
It's hard to not.
Are you and I, Emily, are you back with us?
Yes, thank you. I don't know why it kicked me out, but yes, I'm back.
Okay.
And
Is she,
does
yes,
she want to vote on that one?
You
or
want
does
to
she-
vote on that one? We're adding in academic, accommodate the academic needs of individual students.
At this point, it passes, so you can just guess
Yeah.
if you want to.
Yeah.
Let's add me down for a yes. I'm all about academic.
There we go. Terrific. All right.
And then on the course description, it says students will investigate theorists who set the framework for effective student learning. And I would amend that to read, students will investigate instructional methods that have proven successful over generations and are backed by empirical evidence and sound research.
Wait,
I think a lot of, my education was not in education. But from what I understand, a lot of the like theorists and the way that you define education theory and theorists, right, is pivotal to learning about education and being an educator, right? So I don't feel comfortable removing that piece.
It is,
It's the language they use in education to talk about these practices and these teachings.
but they are still theories, and I'm trying to move us in a direction where it's what has worked.
Well, everything
over
stays as a
generations.
theory until proven otherwise. And just like we see with like reading, we've gone through different ways of teaching reading and those
And
are all
what has-
different
And
theories.
what has been overwhelmingly effective over generations, instead of, because it feels like every couple of years we come up with a new program. Instead, it's almost as if
Apples and oranges compared to the world we live in now. But I just would
It's-
say that the language theories, and that is something that they use in education, academia, to talk about all of these practices and teaching. So teachers in the room, that's like, are there classes on like educational? Yes.
There are, I am also not a traditionally
Okay.
trained teacher,
Yes,
so.
okay.
So my argument would be, if you look back to the 1800s, before we had compulsory ed, like 90% of students were literate. Now we have compulsory ed where the masses are being educated, but our literacy rate is between 30 and 50% statewide. So, and if you go back and you read the literature from the 19th century or the 18th century, most kids and many adults today could not understand it because it was so much more highly intellectual. And yet somehow we think we have the corner on what is effective, and yet we're failing. Our kids are failing. And so I'm simply asking that instead of continuing down the path where we put all of our faith in theories and theorists, that we just look back to what actually worked for generations to make the children of our nation literate, especially back in the day when they were going to school maybe 3 months of the year. And yet they were still doing overwhelmingly better than our children are today. In spite of the massive increase in spending, our rates are plunging. In spite of our massive graduation rates, our actual literacy, when I say literacy, I mean being able to read fluently and write fluently and think fluently, those are all in the toilet. So what I'm saying is something has gone wrong, and we keep moving in that same direction instead of saying, okay, can we just look back to see what has worked overwhelmingly for generations and try to get back to that.
Member Klein, could you restate your motion for us? Because I don't think it's what's in.
Yes.
You gotta go, I think you've got to go up. This is a different motion here, so.
So, yeah, that's not it. So we're still in the course description,
Oh, okay.
and it's the 1, 2, 4th sentence of the course description. Okay, tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready to take it.
Okay, students will investigate instructional methods that have proven overwhelmingly successful over generations and are backed by empirical evidence and sound research, which is different than evidence-based or evidence-informed or best practice, however loosely those are defined. We're talking empirical evidence, actual evidence.
And some research period.
And sound research.
We still are gonna look at the theories.
It's okay if they look at the.
I know, but to acknowledge that here is fine too. I'm just trying to think if there's a way to. You know, because what you're saying is, what is the sound research that promotes learning?
Yeah.
But we still look at the theories. I just don't think taking that out is necessary because there is an important role they play in understanding child development, child learning.
And I didn't take those out down below. I mean, I didn't, they're still in there because they're a
But
bulk
that's
of
my
it.
point,
So-
because this is the course
and-
description, we
yeah.
would want to reference it here, so I'm
Right.
trying to figure out.
So we could just maybe add that sentence that I just gave you after the sentence on the theorists.
I think that's good.
So you would
we
leave, let me
keep the
be clear.
theorist one.
Yeah, so you're leaving the sentence, students will
Yes.
investigate theorists who set the framework.
I'm fine with that, I would strike. have
Or that
proven
the
overwhelming
original
Successful over
That actually
generations.
mentions Piaget
It's
and
duplicative.
That's down below. That's in her
Yeah,
stuff
that's
down below.
there.
That's why I thought we were there.
all right.
So I would make a motion to strike, let's stay right there, let's see. So it'd say students will investigate instructional methods that are backed by empirical evidence and sound research. You could have proven effective in there, but so it needs to strike overwhelmingly successful over generations. I don't
put proven successful
even know what that.
and backed by backed by.
We could do
empirical
proven
evidence.
successful. I'm good with that. So students
Okay.
will investigate methods that have proven
Have proven successful.
successful and are
over
backed
time.
by
Can we say
empirical.
over time?
Isn't proven successful, is that not indicative of time or?
Well, they could pick and choose, they
Students
could
will
cherry
investigate.
pick if it's,
Well, they can cherry pick over time too, different methodologies.
that's why I
of
put
teaching.
overwhelmingly successful over generations. That's why I know normally I wouldn't get that verbose, but I felt it was important.
Okay, so students
So
will
it wouldn't be
investigate
taken out of
instructional
context.
methods that have proven. Well, I don't know what the context is when we put the other words in there, like over generations, that could be a lot of things.
Like going back to 18th.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that, it could be a lot of things.
People
To me,
were-
it's not clear. Students will investigate
Arguing
instructional
with it.
methods that have proven successful and are backed by empirical evidence. That's what I would. A substitute motion, maybe that's the better thing, just substitute motion, we don't have to strike out. So the substitute motion would be that, because I think what you're saying is true. We want to go beyond the theorist and actually look at some of the research. And I think that the class does that and asks the students to do that.
Okay, so we keep that other sentence
No,
that
there's
talks
just-
about
Oh, yeah.
about the
Childhood development theorist, yeah.
the theorists, and then we go to students will investigate instructional methods that have proven successful and are backed by empirical evidence and sound research.
I would vote against this only because it doesn't show overtime, and that overtime is important. Because otherwise it's,
I don't mind that. I think that's friendly. It's successful over time. So after successful over time, I'm fine with. Yeah, I can see what you're saying there.
Okay,
I'm good with that.
are backed by empirical evidence, and sound research.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's what we want.
good. All right, let's vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those
Aye.
opposed, say no.
No.
That's 4-1.
I would like to make a motion on standard 2.
These are on your document that you sent, right?
Yes. Strand 1, standard 2. And I would like it to read, because I think it's less cumbersome than some of the, I'd like it to read, identify and compare different types of schools and discuss how schools who receive public funds are guided by state and federal policies. So I would,
My only question on that was,
Oh,
That amendment's fine with me. I was just wondering, is it necessary to have that next bullet point
No,
amendment that you put in?
no,
Okay, so that'll be stricken
yeah.
and then it'll be at the top. Okay, just that's what was my.
Click it in.
Sorry, we have that up on the board.
It was in our email. They just said, I think, yesterday.
Yeah, I couldn't see any changes on those documents.
There's two documents and one is like just.
I looked at both and I couldn't see anything.
There was one on the table.
I was confused too, so I noticed
Mine
that there
didn't
were
come
two
through that
that
way
way
either.
That I
So
thought
it would be the
and this is different.
Just one was like.
teaching as a profession.
Teaching
That's
as a
it right there.
profession. Do you need this?
Go ahead.
I think just making the one motion, not the other is,
Okay, so
yeah, so right there,
right here,
yes.
this is what you're wanting to do, just
To
for
add
the
that in just in the broad context up above instead of,
receipt.
So is the motion on the board correct? Member,
I can't see. Whoop, there it is. You didn't see that, right? And discuss how schools who receive public funds
Yes, that's accurate.
are guided by state and federal policies. Yes.
Can I add to that and regulations?
policies and regulations? Okay.
So we have member Earl / Klein. Collaborative, no, I won't use that word. We have a motion, identify and compare different types of schools and discuss how schools who receive public funds are guided by state and federal policies and regulations.
Can we, it's guided sounds not quite accurate. Guided, because if you take the word, then you are on the hook. It's not just the
Follow, is follow better?
or must
follow.
comply with. Comply, it's.
I mean, that second bullet point down there could work as the language.
Yeah, I just, let's see.
Follow government policies regarding its funds.
Yeah, I think follow, so it could be receive public funds. Okay, and discuss
And
and
comply with.
schools who receive public funds
Follow state and federal.
follow state and federal policies and regulations.
Follow or guided by.
So our
Yes.
guided by is straight.
Instead of guided by follow?
That's not the right time, right?
So if they don't follow,
37.
Okay,
Yeah, it's almost time to go.
And follow
Just a joke.
sorry, one more time.
and comply with. The R doesn't work, so and
Oh, yeah,
follow
yeah.
or comply with state and federal.
Public funds and follow, yeah, and follow.
Receive public funds. It doesn't need an and.
Okay,
It
that's
still sounded
and
funny.
discuss how schools who receive public funds,
Follow.
it doesn't, comma, follow state, federal, we just need a comma
Or
there?
is it are required to follow?
Yeah, we can put are required to.
Different types of schools and discuss how they.
that's what they
And are
are.
required to follow.
Are required.
To follow.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Because that's what we do. There you go.
Like that.
Let me read it again. And.
Okay, that's it.
Yep.
Identify and compare different types of schools and discuss how schools who receive public funds are required to follow state and federal policies and regulations. Okay? Ready to vote?
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
I
I.
Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. Next.
I would make a motion down on standard 3. Bullet point, what's that, 4, 5, 6, 7? Critical thinker.
No, they are.
And I would amend the bullet point that says critical thinker to read reason and logic, evaluating and analyzing information to detect inaccuracies, fallacies, and illogical conclusions, in order to make intelligent decisions and find effective solutions.
I have a motion. It kind of combines both of those, but it simplifies. So if I would like to make a substitute motion that critical thinker is evaluating and analyzing information in order to make intelligent decisions and find effective solutions.
Wow, what?
At least, is that you? Do you have, does she have?
I have, I just, oh, what happened?
I can read it again, Elise.
Yes, please.
So it's evaluating and analyzing. So strike the critical thinkers, strike, okay. Evaluating and analyzing information in order to make intelligent decisions. Intelligent decisions. And find effective solutions.
Could I also see member Klein's? I didn't see that one up on the board before we went to member Earl's.
Is
If we
mine
could get
not
that
up?
up.
It is up above, right?
Can you scroll up so Emily can see?
I don't know that it's on there.
Yeah, if
Oh,
we just
it's
wanted to scroll up.
I'll
maybe
get it.
side by side or something. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're
Do you
right.
want me to read it to you?
I think I have it. Hang on.
It's not on that larger document. That's why.
I sent her all this and so she was
It was
gonna
just on a
transfer it over.
separate-
Yeah. In case anybody's wondering, there is Ken in here.
Oh, I brought some.
Okay.
Wait, running. What's about liquid flux? Is that board member Klein's motion up here? in green?
Yeah,
Yes, so it would replace critical thinker with reason and logic. And then it would read evaluating and analyzing information to detect inaccuracies, fallacies, and illogical conclusions in order to make intelligent decisions and find effective solutions. And I think in the world we're living in today, students need to be able to identify and detect inaccuracies and fallacies and illogical conclusions. So the logic and reason becomes really important. And I think it's more descriptive than critical thinker, which is very open to interpretation, depending on what documents you're reading and how it's, again, that anything with the word critical is being politicized. So it gets us away from that divisive language or possibly divisive interpretation.
Okay, so which of all of these things are, where are we starting?
I made a substitute motion.
So start with
Okay.
the substitute motion.
Okay, so we're gonna look at the substitute motion.
Substitute motion. Which is the black.
Critical thinker is a
Yes.
critical thinker or just critical thinking?
It's like, they all have, they have like words and then a description of each
Okay.
of them, so it's like kind of just laid out.
Andrew, can you slide up?
Critical thinker
Is
is
that you that's
assessing
There you go.
evaluating.
Sorry.
and analyzing information in order to make intelligent decisions and find effective solutions. All right,
So are we renaming those two then? They seem different. You've got the reason and logic, and then you've got critical thinker. So you guys, in essence, are defining the same thing, but just different titles, different
Correct.
phrases. Is that right?
Correct. And mine has a little more detail in it as to what makes for an intelligent decision. Being able to detect inaccuracies,
Reason and
fallacies,
logic.
and
evaluating.
illogical conclusions. Because that's not being taught really these days. It needs to be.
Okay. So we're gonna start with the substitute motion. All those in favor of the words that have been offered to us by member Earl, please say aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No,
No,
Okay. That passes 3-2.
I would like to make a motion on strand 3 or strand 2, which is the next section, that we approve it as written.
strand 2.
So all of strand 2 approved as already written by the committee, including performance.
Wait, what are we on? What strand are we on? Was that we just
Strand
did?
We're in strand 1.
On strand 1. Okay, I still have one on strand 1.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, the last bullet point, integrity. It says as being trustworthy, ethical, reliable, and I would just end the sentence at that point instead of and accountable for learning outcomes.
Read it one more time, please.
So it's just striking that last part that's already stricken.
Add an and or
No, it would, oh yeah, add an and put a period. So it ends with reliable.
integrity is being trustworthy, ethical, and reliable.
Interesting that you want to remove the part of making sure that the teachers are accountable for learning outcomes.
Well, that's not integrity in my opinion.
Well,
It is in this
it's
class,
saying,
that's
though,
why.
yeah,
Because
like you're making sure that they're following the standards and the learning outcomes of the course in which they're teaching.
Well, if they are being trustworthy, ethical, and reliable, then they
But don't you
would
think a
be.
key to being a great teacher is making sure you're following these standards that we're spending all this time on and making sure that the students
So-
are accountable, that the students are understanding the learning outcomes and that the teacher is accountable for such outcomes?
So, but that implies that the teacher's job is to force learning outcomes instead of teaching the best they can and then letting the students do their work and seeing how it comes out. If we're forcing outcomes, then that's not really student learning. That's something else. It's coercion, it's manipulation.
I mean, the
it's
learning
force,
outcomes are
it's-
created based on the standards in the course and
And
academics.
research,
And
that's where your research comes in, is based on.
accountable for learning outcomes. So they could be accountable for teaching to the standards, but we can't make them accountable for student outcomes. That's on the student. So they can only be held accountable for what they have control over. Can't force a student to do their homework. They can't force a student to achieve the outcomes that they desire the student to achieve. So we can't hold them accountable for the outcomes. We can only hold them accountable for what's within their control, and that is to teach well. And if there are certain goals that we want students to achieve that, based on the standards, then they teach to the standards. And then the outcome is on the student. Otherwise, we're removing accountability from the student and we're putting it all on the teacher.
Is it the outcomes you're hung up on? Because I do think because of this course itself, knowing that there is accountability for parents and for others that children are learning, that they are providing an environment where that takes place. That's where I see this being, because I think that's part, when we talk integrity here, is that they're owning it. They're going to make sure that they provide the best atmosphere for that. So I don't know is it outcomes that's the concern? Because I'm just trying to figure out, because I do think that they need to be accountable. That isn't an integrity thing for the teaching
I
that goes
think
on.
it is outcomes because, as Natalie was saying, they don't have control over the student outcomes. So they can't be accountable.
So is there something else that can be there then,
Well,
if it's not the outcome?
This is the problem with a lot of the language that we use, is that it's not clear who it applies to. And so outcomes is a student, that's what the students do. the teaching is what the teachers do. And yet the terms have been muddied so that it's almost as if it's both the student and the teacher are accountable for some parts that they don't have control over. And so we need to add clarity to our language, because otherwise people read into it what they want to read into it and don't read into it what they don't want. Does that make sense? So if we want them to be accountable for covering the standards and
Which is
teaching
another-
effectively,
I know that at university,
that's
we
one
use
thing.
standards interchangeably with learning outcomes. Learning outcomes,
See, and that's where the confusion comes in, and it needs to be clarified.
higher education, learning outcome
Otherwise-
is a standard.
Yeah, otherwise things, we will always continue to butt heads because nobody is clear on who's responsible for what, because we all interpret the language that's before us differently.
I do think accountability to students and parents is.
Well,
part of
that's different than
integrity.
learning outcomes.
But that's what I'm saying. Is there something there, that accountability?
So accountable to parents would be great for the education of their child. Because parents are the primary and the teachers should be accountable to the parents.
I like the definition here of integrity as being trustworthy, ethical, and reliable, period. It's implied that that if we have the integrity to work that way in all the different levels that the field offers, you will have accountability to the outcomes, whether good or bad. To me, it's implied. So I like the clarity of those words as it applies directly to integrity.
Okay, thank you. Any other
Actually,
comments?
I think we do, and I'm just trying to think, I mean, there's other areas in here where it does emphasize. And I say what I say, accountability or whatever, that the student through learning intentions and that kind of a thing. So I don't think that. I'm just trying to see if it's necessary or not necessary, kind of, yeah. Anyways, we can vote.
Okay.
So in strand 3, it does talk about learning intentions. There's a definition there.
I think, yeah, okay.
Ready to vote?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have member Klein's motion. Strike and accountable for learning outcomes. Integrity, so it would state integrity as being trustworthy, ethical, and reliable, period. Is that correct? All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay,
Do you have any more in strand 1? Okay, so I move that strand 2's moved the way it's written by the committee.
all right,
I would substitute motion
okay,
to amend strand 2 to read, students will evaluate the theories of Gardner, Bloom, Piaget, Maslow, and Erickson, and explain how some in education believe they relate to student learning. And we could add child development.
One more time, please.
Students will evaluate the theories of Gardner, Bloom, Piaget, Maslow, and Piaget, and Erickson, and explain how some in education believe they relate to student learning and child development.
Thank you.
and child development.
if you want, I can add my others for that strand to this motion. Because you were trying to just do
Yeah, is it?
everything in yours.
You would be, it would, because after this it either does or doesn't pass, then I'd make another motion that would move on. So you can do it you want there.
Okay,
You want to add
so-
all of those.
Yeah, so I will also go to standard 2. I don't know if you have that up there or not, but I'm just adding them all together. And I don't know if we had that last week. So standard 2 would read, identify Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences and explain how some in education believe it applies to student learning, and you can add child development. Standard 3. That also, so it reads, identify Bloom's taxonomy and explain how some in education believe it applies to student learning and child development. And 4. Would be basically the same, identify Piaget's theory of cognitive development and explain how some in education believe it applies to student learning and child development. And then standard 5 would amend it to read, identify Maslow's hierarchy of needs and explain how some in education believe it applies to student believe it applies to student learning outcomes.
And child development.
Yes. And then standard 6 would be the same.
So did you want all those to be applies to student learning outcomes and child development, or student learning and child development?
It should be outcomes, I think.
Okay. Because a couple of those earlier ones, we didn't get that.
Partway through, you've changed the word
Well,
relate to applies.
Well, I'm just going off of what was there originally, so there must have been some variation in the standards originally.
So follow the variation then, or do you want it to be standard?
If it doesn't, it doesn't matter to me, as long as we get that idea in there of, some in education believe.
And child development.
Okay,
So child, right there, we need, and child development.
relate to student learning outcomes and child development. Okay, and that was number 6. Was that number 6?
Yep.
Yeah, so, and then did you have changes for strand 2, or were you trying to move
No,
the whole set?
Yeah, I'm good the way it's written.
So number 1 still is missing a student, I think.
Students.
So that can all go in one motion, and then I have another motion before we move to.
Is for strand 2.
So this is my motion for now.
Okay,
The others are, I think, slightly different.
all right.
For those. for now.
Substitute motion, member Klein, to amend strands, basically adding and child development. And then the little phrase, some in education believe they relate to, right?
Yes, explain how some in education believe they relate to.
Okay. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed?
No.
It's 3-2.
And I have strand 2. I would move to amend to strike artifact that depicts and replace it with visual depiction of.
Where are you on strand?
Strand 2, which is in the first sentence under performance skill.
Another education word that I've learned that you use as a way of describing something that is like a display or like a.
A visual depiction of.
It's just, a depiction is just.
Well, I
visual.
get it, but I
broad.
think artifact is like the term that they tend to use in education.
It's
I
a
don't
broad
know.
Term,
Yeah,
which means it could be visual, it could be
Yeah.
representations.
It says visual artifact.
That's what yeah.
In
I'm just
Strand
saying, I'm
already.
just trying to keep the language that our educators talk in the standards so that when they teach, they understand what that means. Instead of being
I
like,
think they'll
oh, is that
understand
an
what a
artifact?
visual depiction of it means. It's self-explanatory. Okay.
So,
Want me to read this a whole sentence?
yeah,
Students will, let's see, students will create a visual depiction of one of the theories about a developing child. Students will create a visual depiction of one of the theories about a developing child.
I have a question on this.
yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, just as that strand reads originally, students will create an artifact that depicts. We had inquired about what artifact could mean. There's so many different ways that this could be depicted, right? Other than visual. And I know everything would automatically be visual because we're going to see what's ever put in front of us, right? Whatever is put in front of us. But I think artifact was there because it opens the door to other things other than, say, a picture or a poster board, like something that would be engaging on a different level. So maybe I'm just looking for some clarity here on what artifact means.
Visual is already part of the strand. I didn't change that. That was already there. It says the original says students will create a visual artifact.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kept visual.
Yes, and
Change
you're changing that
artifact
to depiction of. I was just wondering if artifact brought in other ways to create a visual depiction. And this could be, I don't know, Talia, maybe, just so I understand what the use of artifact is.
Ashley, are you able to answer that one?
I am. Let me know if I cut out. I'm almost to my house and there's a couple of dead spots. Just like board member Real said, we use artifact. It's the common language within education. It allows teachers to not be put in a box where every kid is creating a PowerPoint, or a kid, if there's something like exciting that they want to do, it allows them that freedom in order to meet the standards. If a student has a learning, an IEP 504, it allows them to be creative and yet still successful in showing the performance skill.
Okay, thank you. And so member Klein, if I could just verify then, visual depiction, would that also address like maybe what Ashley had just said? If it was just visual depiction of.
The university, we have to provide artifacts to demonstrate student learning in outcomes having been achieved. And they could be a musical composition, they could be a dance, they could be a PowerPoint, they could be a piece of art, they could be a chart, they could be a diagram. If you've got visual in there, I mean, there are a lot of things sometimes a paper, an essay is an artifact with learning outcomes. It's whatever the student is producing that can be reviewed as evidence of their, but this is not about the student learning outcomes. This is about the theories of a developing child. So I'm not exactly sure what they were trying to communicate. Was it a visual something?
Yeah, so this is what it says. Students will create a visual artifact that depicts one of the theories about a developing child. Supposed theories about a developing child. Because we're assuming that these may not be accurate. Or some of the information's assumed, but so they're gonna pick one of those. That's what they're asked to do after going through all these different theories, ways of child development, child learning. So
If you also read right below that, Board Member Earl, we give examples of what visual artifacts might include with the theorists that would be appropriate to give them some type of
it's
idea.
examples of what might look like. That's helpful.
Trying to write a song. Develop actions to teach rather. So it is.
I'm ready to vote. I don't know.
Okay.
Are you?
All right. Thank you. Let's vote.
Could I just add my next one to that also, where it says examples of visual artifacts? I change that to depictions also and do those together.
Okay, sure.
But he's not on the document.
They were just, I read back on the email because I couldn't find them either, but the boxes were too small. And so when she was, I think,
Well, I fixed that problem. That was for the lengthier ones.
I'm not sure. I have yours here though.
Yeah, as long as you can see where I'm talking about. Just as examples of visual artifacts could include,
Yeah.
just say depictions instead of artifacts. Okay,
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
aye.
Those opposed, say nay.
No,
Nay.
Nay.
Oh,
I trained today.
Then I have a motion for that third bullet point under performance skills, strand 2, where it says apply the theory to a real life experience of a developing child. So I would, and this is a bit lengthier, so I don't know if you just don't have it, but
Can I know it doesn't matter, but can I actually change my vote on that last one?
I'm good
To,
with that.
okay, please, to yay, only because if I can just interject here, I just, again, Googled the meaning of visual depiction means any photograph, film, video picture, digital or computer generated image or picture, whether made or produced by electronic, mechanical, or other means. And
so it covers it all.
so it seems maybe it's actually more of what you're looking for. Is that right?
Well, I think the intent is the artifact is something that an educator is already familiar with. Not that I'm sure depictions works, but it's just that they're familiar with that because they have to submit artifacts for different courses and different things. So it's something to be familiar with. So, but
Okay.
yeah.
All right, that's okay.
Anyways, it doesn't matter, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So my next one, under the strand 2 performance skills, the third bullet point would read, you ready? Evaluate a theory based on.
You surprised me. Okay, I thought you were gonna go apply this, so I'd already had some
Out there
time.
in the green. I don't know if that's helpful.
Evaluate a theory Based on,
Oh, it's right there already.
okay, based on reason, logic,
It's already there.
and sound research. So I'm just
Oh,
reading
sorry, I'm
it.
sorry. Yep.
Then look for strong causational evidence of the theory in the real life experience of a developing child that either strengthens or weakens the theory's claims. Make your argument for or against using the evidence gathered. In fact, I would probably just change it and make an argument for or against. So it's just a continuation of this previous sentence.
And make their argument.
Experience of a developing child.
Yes.
Of a. Okay,
And I would speak against this. This is education 1. You're asking him to go in and evaluate a theory instead of just the application of one of those theories for usage. So the original language said apply the theory to a real life experience of a developing child. These are students that this is their first exposure to education. But this requires them to now evaluate it, go in and do an analysis, then apply one of them, and then go back and make arguments for and against. I think it's just simply, how is this theory applied? How do you see this with young children or, whatever you're looking at? So I would speak against it.
any other comments or questions? Okay, let's then take this motion. Reads evaluate the theory based on reason, logic, and sound research, and look for strong causational evidence of the theory in the real life experience of a developing child that either strengthens or weakens the theory claims, and make an argument for or against using the evidence gathered. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, no. No.
No. Strand 3, I would move to amend to read. Students will develop and present a lesson plan connecting learning goals and assessments by using instructional strategies.
So what did you take out?
So changing learning intentions to learning goals and assessments instead of success criteria
Is Ashley, did you,
by using instructional strategies.
I think, Ashley, are you there?
I am.
Are the words is this again the terms like learning intentions and success criteria? I've heard those before, including instructional strategies. Are those again like educator terms?
Yes, it's educator terms, and learning intentions and success criteria is actually language that is from the Teaching as a Profession 3 standards that were approved last year. So the committee recommends keeping that language for the flow. It will also be in the Principles of Educational Technology. This was language that was recommended by Director Thronson last year when we were doing the TAP 3 standards.
So, and the definition of learning intentions, once again, is just that. It's the day-to-day learning goals aligned with state standards.
Correct.
The learning
So,
intentions is a term we currently use.
yes,
Is that right?
that is correct.
And then success criteria, assessments limits. Success criteria could be, it doesn't have to be an assessment. It could be a variety of measurement tools.
Correct. So for
it's a broader.
Yep. So for example, like your learning intention today as a board would be to pass the CTE standards. Your success criteria would be, did you pass the standards or not? There wasn't necessarily an assessment to it, but like there's a simple example.
Just those are that's educator language.
I'd actually like to amend this a little bit. So it reads, students will develop and present a lesson plan connecting learning goals with instructional strategies.
by using, no, just period.
That. Mhm.
One thing I would like to just say with regards to instructional strategies, those are strategies that a teacher uses to ensure that the student is learning. Like board member Earl stated, this is the first class within the K-12 teaching as a profession pathway. This is mostly your 9th graders or some 10th graders that are taking this. They're not going to have that instructional strategy piece. It's more of them understanding what is a learning intention? Did you meet it? And I think that once you get to the performance skill, it will show you like what it is that we want the students to take away with regards to this. And it's not them really creating an in-depth lesson with multiple strategies. It's we want them to understand what a learning intention is and what the success criteria is.
Okay. Learning intentions and success criteria are go specifically back to John Hattie and his flawed research. And you can look it up and read all of the actual statisticians and their research on John Hattie and how he goes terribly wrong on how he calculates effect size, etc., to come up with his learning intentions and success criteria framework that he uses. And so this is moving us in the wrong direction. And it's as prevalent as it is, does not mean it is proven. In fact, it has been proven terribly flawed. And so that is why I want to move away from learning intentions and success criteria that puts children's learning in a box, in a very confined box, instead of allowing them to learn whatever they're able to from a certain activity or assignment. They are now zeroed in. It's like when I was in school and I had a history teacher, what she would do, she'd give us a worksheet that had the exact words verbatim from the textbook with blanks. And all we had to do was go through and skim through to find what word was missing and fill it in. Did I learn anything from history that year? No. I went through the whole textbook, but I didn't read anything because I was looking for the blank. And that's what the success criteria and learning intentions are. It's a checkbox method that limits rather than expands learning. Okay. Based on flawed effect size research, where he measures apples to oranges throughout the whole thing without any research that is replicable or that follows sound research protocol with, I mean, most of his research completely, it doesn't include control groups at all. It's meta-analysis of meta-analysis, which is like the loosest standard you could possibly find.
I'll just speak to the motion here. I don't know who John Hattie is. I've never heard of him before, but as outside of that, I don't mind the motion. I just think it's more clear because you're connecting learning goals with instructional strategy. That in and of itself can teach us, even a 9th grade student, that the instructional strategy that they take to connecting the learning goal is huge. It has a huge impact. I see this being simplified. I see kids being able to have success with this. Anyway, that's where I stand. I think I'm ready to vote.
Okay. All those in favor? Let's see now. There's more than this, right? Is
No,
there
it's
something
just
I'm
a-
about?
This is what we're voting on right now.
What's on the screen?
There's more after that. But
All right. So Member Klein's motion, strand 3, students will develop and present a lesson plan connecting learning goals with instructional strategies. All those in favor, say aye.
I
Those opposed?
No.
No. So it's 2 to 3.
I move on standard 1 to amend it to read, as the first line, create lesson plans, set learning goals, and create classroom tests to measure student progress toward learning goals.
This is back to that same argument as before, I think, learning intentions and success criteria.
I would make a substitute motion that we move standard 1 for it is written.
Okay. Speak to that.
I think we're using learning intentions, which are the goals, the success criteria.
Right,
So
let's vote. Member Earl, substitute motion, move standard 1 forward as written. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye. Those opposed?
No,
No,
are you and I? Say aye. Yes.
3-2.
that was just standard 1.
I'd like to make a motion on standard 2, where it says instructional strategies are. I would like to change the language to instructional strategies are techniques educators use to help students become proficient learners. And then strike the rest of that sentence.
How do you define proficient learner versus somebody a student that becomes academically proficient? Proficient learner. How do you define learner?
How do you find learner? The
How do
student
you-
that's learning would be the student. I think this is referring to the student, that it's their learning being proficient, and there's a variety of ways to measure that. It depends on what you're doing. So if it were math, for example, in my math class, there are certain ways we do proficiency, and it's based on assessments as well as assignments that are turned in. We could say that they're proficient in an area because we measure those. So I can validate that based on the outcomes of their work and the things they're doing. So we're moving towards becoming a proficient learner.
What about the saying become academically proficient instead? So it's more concrete.
So what is academically proficient? What does that mean?
That would refer specifically to reading, writing, math.
So not
The
this
basic-
class then? What, I mean, there's lots of classes kids take that are not like music, right? Are those not, what do you consider academic and what's not academic?
What can be measured, like
So-
you said. Objectively measured. That's what
Proficient becoming.
proficient. But a learner, how proficient somebody is at learning is different than proficient at reading or proficient in music or proficient at art.
So you're saying, okay, I think I understand what you're saying. You're saying becoming proficient
In whatever
proficient
area they
learner
are.
versus a proficiency in areas.
Correct.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Is academically, does that,
Or proficient in core content.
okay, that would work, proficient in core content. That would, can we change that from learners to core content? I see what you're saying. Proficient in core. That's in educators use to help students become proficient in core content. Yes. Yeah. I'm ready. I don't know if there's somebody else.
Okay, so what was the original? Since we're.
Okay,
you
the
know, we don't
original
have these-
was, it's right here. It was our techniques used to help students become independent learners. Independent learning, I don't think is what we want I mean, we do want to be independent learners, but the primary goal would be proficient in the core content, or as we've outlined here.
If they're proficient, then they can be, and that moves them towards becoming independent. But independent
As an objective in and of itself.
is not a good standard.
Can I just make a comment? That core often implies reading, writing, and math as opposed to arts and CTE and languages and some of those.
Should it be state standards then, or
Class content or
course content.
course content.
okay, course content? Yeah, that's what I was worried when they
That's
activity
good.
were brought in.
Work for you.
As long as it's the objective course content and not all the subjective. Objective course content.
No, I'm good with course content. Then it.
Okay, so here we are. Motion from member Earl, standard 2 instructional strategies are techniques educators use to help students become proficient in course content. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, and then I have a motion on student engagement. I would make a motion that the language say student engagement is the degree to which a student is focused, actively participates, and completes academic coursework. Does someone have that, or do you want me to read it again? You got it?
It's just slightly different. Number.
Yeah, just creates, I think, better. Okay. We can vote on that. Ready to vote on that?
So is that, I mean, I have a lot of students engaged in my music classroom, but they're not necessarily doing academic coursework. And as a dancer, I can engage students.
So it's not academic. Let's see, did I have academic in that? Degree to which a student is focused, actively participates and completes. Oh, I see.
There are elements of academics in music. And
Well, sure, absolutely,
I mean, that's
absolutely, but
the-
I mean.
the
if-
objective measures
I
are
mean,
part that you.
woodworking, or whatever class, whatever I'm doing, student engagement.
Right.
It can
That's-
be in a lot of different
Yeah.
settings. classroom
That's
settings.
easy to measure because those are just like courses that have been around forever. It's what she's getting away from is what was there that is the more
Yeah, like
subjective
passion and.
interest, optimism, and, those kind of things. But if they're dancing, if they're participating in what the course requires,
Yours
then
has
they're.
curricular requirements. We could change it to that if that completes curricular requirements. Does that work, Randy?
Sure, I mean, yeah. I just thought academic was kind of
So the curricular requirements.
excluding some areas
That-
where you want students to be engaged.
So that basically takes it to what mine was.
These are Thanksgiving.
What if you used learning experiences instead of academic?
Water and facilities. I think there's some.
Okay, so,
That's probably better than that.
Read it out.
They're not bad.
Vote.
Yeah, let's.
Focus. Things, things for requirements. Okay. Okay, we're ready to vote?
Yep.
All those in favor? Say aye.
No.
No.
Aye.
3 to 2 passes.
I would move to amend strand 3, the performance skill. Striking intention and adding goals instead. And then striking a success criteria and adding classroom quiz or test, formative or summative assessment. And then I would add a third bullet point that says, and an improvement goal.
I think on this one, though, it says that they plan, create, and present a 5 to 7 minute how-to lesson. And so the idea here, and I think, again, learning intention is another one of those educator terms. But it would be hard to do a quiz or test. What you would do in that instance is that you would have a rubric based on that performance skill to plan a 5 to 7 minute how-to lesson, and the success criteria would be how well they scored in that rubric.
Again, this is putting
So you
student
can't-
learning in a box and limiting.
A quiz or a test is the
Because
literal
they're
box.
going to only zero in on that specific aspect and do the minimum required instead of really expand.
I disagree with that because first of all, we don't do summative assessments on learning goals. Yeah,
We can leave that off. I'm
yeah,
happy to leave that.
and then we're limiting to quiz, test, and formative assessments versus there's a variety of ways that could be measured, which may not even be in test format or assessment format, so. Let's see, the last one though, and inflection.
So it would replace the third or add to it, no?
An improvement goal, a reflection on the effectiveness of the instructional strategies used and an
And.
improvement goal. How it just help, okay, so the reflection, a reflection would not actually. Usually a reflection includes how could I improve? What did I do good? What did I, it's encompassing of that, so I'm not sure that adds.
It just adds we're gonna write down something that we can do to improve going forward after we reflect on it and how effective that instructional strategy was. Then we're going to put in writing something that it can be improved upon the next time.
Okay, Ashley, I don't know if you're there, the reflective process, does that normally not include, is that just an oral thing or is it just left up to educator on that? Do you know?
So I've been able to go out to different schools to watch, to be able to observe classrooms, and teachers do it different all the time. An example, a teacher at Roy High School, a student did a simple how-to on how to change a diaper because they just barely had a baby brother. And so the learning intention was, how do you change a diaper? The success criteria is she brought 3 different stuffed animals of different sizes and shapes, brought a diaper, and had students come up and demonstrate them changing a diaper. And then the reflection that teacher chose to do was she first asked the students that participated in the lesson, what did you like about the lesson plan? What did what were great things? Kudos, right? And then what is some constructive criticism or constructive feedback to think about for the next lesson that they do? It's not necessarily a write down. It's let's do this,
Okay, thank you. I'm ready to vote. Yeah.
So ready? Okay, so we have motion from member Klein. Strand 3, performance skills, strike intention and goals, strike success criteria, add quiz, test, or summative assessment, add to the third bullet, and an improvement goal. All those in favor say aye.
No. Oh, sorry.
Aye.
Wait for the call.
All those no.
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 Now that you're on.
Not nay.
I was waiting for Emily because she started. Did you say yes, Emily?
I think she was.
She did.
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Okay, so strand 4, standard 1, move to strike intentions and replace with goals. On that first, the end of the first bullet point. So it would read feedback is information about the student's performance related to learning goals.
Is that correct? I'm sorry, I missed part of it.
Yes, that's correct.
This is strand 4, standard 1, correct?
Okay.
Okay, any questions? All those in favor?
Yes.
Those opposed?
I'm a yes.
Okay. True.
And standard 2 on the first sentence where it says identify formative assessment and how it evaluates student learning, I would change, or I would add and informs the educators. I have classroom, but I would put instruction instead of classroom. Since we are told that that's what it does.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good add. I like it.
I'm sorry, can I get that one more time?
Sure, so you just add to the end and informs the educator's instruction,
Educators.
classroom instruction.
Oh, classroom.
Yes. Doesn't matter.
Okay,
So you're leaving classroom or taking it out?
Classroom's not there, so,
It says classroom
Take it out.
instruction.
so just educator's instruction.
Okay, so taking it out.
Does it need the educators? Yeah.
Yeah,
Apostrophe, yes.
yes. Well, on student learning, it doesn't have an S, so if we did student learning and educator instruction, we keep it consistent.
so is that correct? Or we need it?
I think it just, and informs educator instruction.
So get rid
Take
of
out
that.
the and classroom.
Okay, better.
Okay, that's it. Ready to vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous.
And then standard 2, the last bullet point, it says progress, forward movement toward a learning intention. I would strike toward a learning intention and add towards the state's desired outcome. I think I have student learning there, but I would just put outcome.
But instead of desire, you want what?
You could just leave it, So it says towards the state's desired student learning outcome.
So forward movement towards the state's desired student learning outcomes.
The state's desired, like,
Actually, put it to the standards instead of the student learning outcome. Forward movement towards demonstrating state standards.
we'll say that again. So toward the state desired,
Toward the state's,
Standards.
towards achievement, let's see, wait. Forward movement toward achieving state standards. Let's keep it simple.
Okay,
Why do we have, I just want to state desired.
I took that, like, I took that
Okay.
out.
forward.
Forward movement toward
towards
achieving state
achieving
standards
Standards.
is less clunky. Since that's how teachers measure progress, right? Isn't that an accurate description of how teachers measure student progress?
Okay, ready to vote? All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay. Standard 3. I would move,
Same language you had before there, that you had on the last one.
identify summative assessment and how it, yes, evaluates student learning and informs educator instruction.
So take out the in classroom.
Measurement of student learning at the conclusion of the defined instructional period. I mean, it was pretty simple before.
Just that evaluates student learning before, but
But
we were
it's
just
a-
adding and informs educator instruction since that's what,
Yeah, it helps.
Oh, I'm looking at the next one.
yeah.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
Yep.
Yes, and
All those
let me
in
just clar-
favor?
Sorry, this is standard 3, right?
Yes,
Okay.
All those in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I,
Okay, well, we had a lot of ayes. And
Are you an
is that enough? I'm an aye.
okay, and then summative assessment, I have a motion to amend standard 3 bullet point 1 to read. Summative assessment is a measurement of educator instruction and student, I would add student progress towards state standards at the conclusion of a defined instructional period. Right, amended it slightly from what I had.
So the first one was, okay, so summative assessment is a measurement of student learning at the conclusion of a defined instructional period.
I added an educator instruction like we did before. An assessment is a measurement of educator instruction and student progress towards state standards at the conclusion of a defined instructional period.
We don't have Darren online, do we?
I just feel like we're removing a lot of the educator terminology. That's part that worries me.
I
about a
just
lot
don't
of
know
time.
if it's not always
I just
that.
added
so.
I just added clarity to, because Darren says all the time that the assessments, the state assessments are to inform educator instruction as well as
Well, it's to
student learning.
inform, but you're actually saying it's a measurement of their instruction.
Okay, so did we just put it as summative assessment informs educator instruction and is a measurement of student progress.
That I could go with, but
Okay, so let's do that. Summative assessment informs educator instruction and student progress toward,
that's third.
or student progress towards state standards at the conclusion of a defined instruction
That is
period.
a measurement of.
Yeah,
That works.
yes.
Okay, great. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
I'm an I.
I have a motion on strand 5. One more. Oh, you do,
Before
sorry.
that, yeah, so standard 3, competency, I would add to the end of that and determined, let's see, yeah, and determined by the state. So it would read demonstrating learned skills and knowledge as expected and as determined by the state, or as determined by the state. Expected and determined by the state. So
Why
just
is that necessary? I'm just not, I help understand why that would be.
Well, because competency is based on the state's definition of competency or success. So it's just adding that clarity, because that may not match somebody else's definition of competency in a certain area, because they're all different levels. There's a spectrum, you could say, of what people consider competent or being able to demonstrate mastery, and depending on what research you look at, those levels are all over the map as far as what counts as
So you're saying
mastery and what
narrowing it
counts
to
as competent. Because I would argue in many cases that competency is a lowering of the standards in many cases, and so, like I'm saying, as determined by the state. So that's just a more objective reality. We're just
Yeah, so Leah, does
adding
that add clarity
Ashley,
to, I'm just wondering, because I can see board member Klein's not wanting to make it so broad, but at the same time, does this actually mean if it's not defined by the state, we can't have a competency? Does that make sense?
So an example that I would give like in my classroom is you have your competencies within standards that we teach. But for example, in elementary school, for a kindergartner, a competency might be that they can line up and walk to the lunchroom. And so we try to give them like there's your competencies that you have within classroom management, there's competencies within standards. And so it's just, you're demonstrating learned skills and knowledge as expected. And
this is again the problem with one word being used in multiple different ways, because where we think it's an objective measurement of learning, it's being used in a very broad sense all over the map. So we never know what we're talking about when we say competency. Everybody could be thinking about a different aspect of competency instead of a concrete. That's why demonstrating learned skills and knowledge as defined by who. So that I put as determined by the state. And that's probably not even narrow enough, because everybody has a different definition of what competency means.
it feels a little, I just keep going to think about, like, this is one class for these students. They are going to move on if they go through this pipeline to become an educator, a lot more information on those different pieces. And if I'm an educator, a teacher that's working on teaching these students the basic knowledge of being a teacher or an educator, I think it's superfluous at this point, like adding that. It said it's not going to change how they're going to be teaching the course.
I'm ready to vote too.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No.
I have a motion. I have a little different definition for FERPA. See if we can get closer, Natalie.
Strand 5 standard.
Yeah, strand 5, standard 1. And the reason why is we don't usually refer to what something was when we're referring to it. But I know where you're headed with this. Yeah, because we don't go back, I mean, we don't pick laws from this session and say, oh, it used to be, you know, so but it's that.
But they're still treating it
So let
as
me give,
in the way it's written, as if
Right.
it was the
So
way
let me
it
see.
was, and it's not that way anymore,
let me
so.
try this and just tell me if we need to fix anything. Is a federal law that addresses parent rights regarding their students' education records and defines the conditions under which schools may share education records with third parties. That is exactly what FERPA is.
And they define who
But that's the condition.
qualifies as a third party, even as a
Yeah.
school official is now defined as a,
Well, it's not just school official, there's a whole bunch of.
anybody,
people
well,
that
anybody
qualify.
with, in contracts, all they have to do is name an entity, a school official, and then they have access to all the records, which they do regularly.
Right, it's
In
highly
the
flawed.
contracts, we
It's
pass.
It's
They
a
just
flawed law that needs to be.
name
approved
anybody
by
a school official that they want to call a school
It's
official.
not there yet. Does this get close to what it currently is?
That's exact, I mean, I do FERPA training every year. I have to do FERPA
Right.
training, and that's basically exactly what it is, except for when you teach college, you can tell them that they don't get to talk to you about their
It
students.
defines the conditions under which it may be shared. And that's what it does. And it needs to be mended. But we can't, going back to this language, it says originally written, we can't, because it's
I get
not
it.
what it is. So, yeah, think on that and see if that works. I did reach, Katie shared a couple of possibilities. This one, it's the one I liked the best.
Shared education records. Third parties,
Okay,
Because I didn't like.
yeah, because it doesn't, it's not protecting their records the way it's on the written side. Yeah, I didn't like that. I agree much better with
Okay.
what you've suggested.
okay. So ready to vote? Everyone in favor, say aye.
I,
Those opposed?
I have an amendment on standard 2. It's evaluate under the whatever section we're in, strand 5, says evaluate a variety of accommodations to meet all student needs. I would like it changed to individual student needs because this is specific to
standard 5, strand.
strand 5, standard 2. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so instead of all, it's individual, because you're trying, in this case, you're trying to, these are very specific to specific individual students, so I feel like it needs to be directed towards that individual student, so that's my motion there. So what do you want me to give you? So strike all and insert individual.
We're dealing with each student individually instead of universalizing an approach for all of them in spite of their needs, their individual needs, so.
Well, in this case, it's specific to, you're talking about accommodations in the classroom, usually under IEP, that kind of thing, 504, so this would be individual needs. Is that what?
Like
maybe
an
you're just-
IEP,
Yes,
individual
yeah.
education.
So they would take in the class, they'd take their original lesson, and now they would meet an individual need of a student, so
Okay,
anyways.
any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous, thank you.
Do you have any more, Natalie?
No, that's fine.
Okay, I make a motion that we move forward. Is this teaching as a profession, right?
Yes.
Teaching as a profession to the full board for approval. Right, I should just print that language somewhere. Did I miss anything? As it was intended. Okay, okay.
Okay, we have a motion to move teaching as a profession on to the full board for approval. As amended to the full board for approval. Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed?
No,
And I'm gonna make a motion, we adjourn. Are we at 6?
We've got about 5 minutes.
Is there something we can do in 5 minutes?
There's one thing that you can look at and decide if you can do it in 5 minutes.
Okay,
And that would be mechanical engineering design 1 and
Perfect.
2.
I have that one. I just have to leave at 6.
9.
And so this goes back to the workplace skills discussion, different from Skills USA, but more
Do you have
like what
do you have
we
a page number?
Which, it's page, well, my numbers are gonna be different than your guys'.
Okay, yeah, that's all right.
It's towards, it's not all the way to the
Oh,
bottom.
let me type in mechanical engineering. Yeah, that's what I just did too.
Oh, no, we're not trying to pass this out right now. Because
There's
I've
only,
got
oh, you have
amendments on it.
You have, I see one amendment you have.
Yes,
Is this it?
the culture of, so it would, it's at the bottom of 248. Page 248, where it says contribute to a culture of safety by, and I would strike a culture of and add workplace in instead. So it would say contribute to workplace safety by, and then it lists things.
So what's the class again?
It's right here, mechanical engineering design one. Is that the one you were talking about, Talia?
Yes.
Okay.
You had this same discussion on an earlier class,
You take care of this.
not in this particular class, but you did take care of it in an earlier class.
But if we went and amended it as we had it previously, then we could pass this course through as well. because it's
Correct,
still-
and that's what I'm trying to get you back to, so. hold on.
Okay, because I had a couple other ones in there that we also dealt with where it says an awareness of and respect for global diversity and cultural differences and
Why am I not finding it?
and maintaining a flexible and adaptive attitude. I had changes for that, but I think we're accepted that we could just, it's the same.
On the Word doc with the columns, it's page 1.
Okay, I'm like, I'm struggling there. Oh, there we go, okay. Okay, so do we have a couple we can do real quick then?
Yeah,
Because there's a
this should
there's a
go
few.
fast
Okay.
if we can find the, I mean, I have the, it's the same. I mean, I have the same verbiage
To
that I
amend it
was,
to what we worked on on
but
Friday.
I don't know what we ended up passing before. If it was what I suggested or something else.
Architecture classroom.
Yep, hold on, let me get back up there.
Here's a
Piece, but maybe at the
Okay.
bottom. Oh my gosh, back to the top, yeah. Okay, so we had the motion was contribute to a culture of workplace safety, however, that failed.
So a culture of stayed in.
So a culture of safety stayed in.
Okay, and then on the other two bullet points in
Is
that
there an
same area.
attendance one? Did you want to move that attendance one or not?
Attendance.
I'm looking at this, it says exceed the established school attendance policy to establish, and you wanted to make it
Where is that?
established. I'm looking just on my computer, so I know.
Oh, I don't know where that is. I'm looking at the actual document, the whole standards document.
Oh,
So I don't know where that is.
I can't tell. It doesn't.
Yeah, I agree. I see this, I see the bullet point, you're exceeding the established school attendance policy. What did I suggest on
You
there?
just striking the top and establish a consistent record of attendance, punctuality, and
Oh, yeah,
dependability.
I would go for that. I don't know how you,
Would they have to establish, they'd
Exceed.
have to come up with some kind of a,
yeah, how do you exceed? I mean, just, you either
maybe
show
it's
up
not
or you don't.
maybe it's that, well, except for the attendance policy, I think, you know, after you miss so many days, there is an established policy, right? It falls into other areas.
But if this is under workplace skills.
Right.
So it's, the skill would be establishing a consistent record of attendance, punctuality, and dependability. Like if we're talking preparation for the workplace, right? They don't have,
What would a consistent record be, though?
meaning.
How do you know
consist-
you've met a consistent
Consistently
record?
punctual and dependable. And if you're like all over the place, they can't count on you. You never know if you're gonna show up or not. Not consistent. If you have a suggestion.
I don't know. That's why I'm trying to think through it.
I think we probably have to have more time.
Okay. Except for that's the only ones in that area, right?
Yeah, and then we got
There was also the two, and we looked at these before too. I don't remember what happened with these in the other one. Where it says work productively as a member of a team with an awareness of and respect for global diversity and cultural
Yeah, what did we
differences.
put there? We had, that I have the chart one.
Right, so
You're
Right.
What
did it,
Member of a team with awareness and respect what cultural differences.
what passed before?
That was what passed.
Mm-hmm.
So work productively as a member of a team with awareness and respect of cultural differences.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other was critical thinking, is that right?
The next one was, it was the very next bullet point, exhibit initiative and leadership while maintaining a flexible and adaptive.
So that means
Adaptable
exhibit
attitude.
initiative and leadership while demonstrating the ability to adapt to changing needs and
Okay,
situations.
so we did pass mine on that one before.
So should we just make a motion to move what was previously
Yes.
passed?
So in the architectural design classes.
Can we do it one at a time? Okay, so we'll just do the awareness and respect of, or whatever you said it was.
I should have copied them.
I think you just took out diversity and said differences in culture or cultural differences.
Work productively as a member of a team with awareness and respect of cultural differences.
So,
Okay, so we can move that one then. Okay, Randy, do you want to move that one? Right, you just want to do a piece
Yeah,
at a
just-
time.
call
One
for
at a
the
time.
vote.
Okay, so those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No,
No,
So 2 opposed, right?
and the next one, if you'll read that.
Let me jump back up there.
I'll move this one. She'll read it.
Uh,
Exhibit initiative.
Demonstrated
work
ability.
productively as a member of a team with awareness and respect of cultural
No, the
differences.
next one.
We just did that one, didn't we? Exhibit initiative and leadership while demonstrating the ability to adapt to changing needs and situations.
Okay.
And
Those
that
in
was
favor?
in place of, that was in place to demonstrate the ability to think critically.
No, and that was in place of maintaining a flexible and adaptable attitude. So,
We don't have that one here. Is that one?
yeah, it is. It's like the
Okay, I'll take your word. I just
second
don't have
one
it
down
this
on the
document.
next page.
Okay.
All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
and then I had the last one, which was probably in the previous standard that we did. Also demonstrate an ability to think critically and creatively to solve problems and develop improvements to products and processes. And I just moved to strike think critically and creatively too. So it just is.
We had one like that.
That one failed and
That one
everything
failed.
else
Okay, well, we'll skip that then.
So we just have the attendance one at the top, right?
But you just need to decide on that.
Yeah.
So just move that one and then people can decide.
And where is it up here?
At the very
Yeah,
top on the right.
so,
So just establish a consistent record of attendance, punctuality, and dependability.
yes,
So that's what,
that's what we're voting on.
all right. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye.
I,
Opposed?
No.
Thank you.
I make a motion that we move mechanical engineering design 1 and mechanical engineering design 2 forward to the board for approval. As amended.
Thank you for that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Those opposed? None. Okay. So we'll accept a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
All those in favor?
I.
I. Thank you, everybody.
That was, thank you.
Alrighty.
But none of my employees had them at work yesterday, and I went directly to Trader Joe's about 6 minutes. I did.
They are really good. Thanks for sharing.
On the way anyway, so. She goes, you need to try these. I had one chip and I was like, well, gotta go to Trader Joe's. Really interesting. I love Thanksgiving flavors. Fall harvest flavors, squash, yeah.
Trader Joe's, that's what you put the seasonal stuff too, like when you stock up on it.
I got like a best, I like all those cookies for like, and those chips are $2. You can have the rest, I don't want them. I have 6 bags of my love it. Like, you should dump these in there too, because I'm not.
I'll take them home on my phone.
You gotta go because Trader Joe's told me yesterday that when they're volunteer. Natalie.
Bye.
I went to the jury for one because I had to go on day break. Well, the director one had plenty yesterday.
I'm just north of there.
I'm a big fan of their pumpkin butter.
Oh,
And they
yes.
fig butter, like those things.
Yes, the fig butter is so good.
Alex, you can end our
Oh,
meeting.
yeah,
Thank you.
all right. And the butternuts